Hello, welcome to this tutorial video. I'm Tom van der Wegen. I'm the solutions architect for Core Security, and in this video I'm going to tell you how you can do a network pen test with Core Impact. Now in front of you, you see I opened a workspace, and in the workspace we are going to do our network pen test. Now you can see a couple of screens here. So we see a screen here called Network RPT, and these are basically wizard-based steps which will start the pen test. And these are basically the steps that a pen tester or an attacker will typically do. So the first step is network information gathering, on which we basically start the port scan. So let me quickly click that. That will start a wizard. In that wizard we decide how we're going to do the port scan. So Core Impact's got its own port scanning method, but we also have built-in Nmap, and we can import data from third-party scanners. So we've got all the big scanners in here, and the difference is if Core Impact or Nmap is doing the port scan, basically we will scan the environment, we'll see what machines are live, we will have a look at what ports are open and what operating systems are running, and based on that we will do the attack. When we import data from a third-party scanner, however, we will use the information that the third-party scanner gives us. So we will check whether the machines they tell us are in the scan are live, and for the rest we will basically validate the vulnerabilities that they tell us there are. Okay, but in this case I am going to use Core Impact to do our port scan. So I'm going to use IP version 4. This is my range, but I can of course select single IPs here. I can use CIDR, I can use ranges, and so forth and so forth. But in this case I'm going to stick with my range here. I can do a fast, a detailed, or a custom port scan, and basically this means a fast will basically do the top 100 ports, a detailed will do the top 1000 ports, and with a custom scan I can select what ports I want to scan, what method, what the timeout is, and so forth and so forth. Okay, but for this video I'm going to stick with the detailed, and I'm going to stick with the default here. So I'm also going to perform a surveillance camera fingerprint, so we can also see if there's any CCTV cameras within my range, and are they exploitable as well. So I'm going to finish this, and this will basically start the port scan. Down here in the module log we can see exactly what Core Impact is doing. So it's basically, if I open this up, it will do a first of all try to do a network discovery via UPnP. After that, when it's finished, so that after that's finished, it will basically continue the network discovery with ARP. It's getting reply, so it's pinging these machines, it gets reply, and it will basically publish them here. Okay, so the next thing after it's doing the ARP, it will do the port scan, several different port scans, and when it's done the port scan, it will continue with the fingerprinting here. We basically discovered this machine here, Windows machine, and down here we can see all the properties of that machine. So we can see the IP address, the operating system. We can see the MAC address, also what ports are open, and even if I want even more details, I can just go to Entity Properties, and that basically shows us all the information in more detail. Okay. Now, while that's the scan is running, I can already start my second wizard here, which I can just double click here and select my targets there, or what I can do, I can just drag and drop. I can either drag and drop it over a machine I want to attack, or I can drag and drop it over hosts, and that will basically select all the hosts here. So I just need to make sure I deselect my local host because I don't want to attack myself. But for the rest, we're basically going to take all these machines here. I click OK. The next thing it will ask me is basically, do I want to launch code execution vulnerabilities, or do I also want to launch identity authentication weaknesses? So basically, do I want to check if there's any passwords that we can crack? I'm going to select both. The second question is, do you want to use exploits that might leave a service unavailable? Now, because Core Security coded all the exploits in the product ourselves, we've got a team of 90 people in Buenos Aires coding these exploits and testing these exploits, so we know exactly what an exploit is going to do. Now, because these are exploits, the nature of an exploit is that sometimes it might crash a service. It might crash the service that it actually targets. So if we, in our testing, if we find it out that happens, so we test something 20 times, one time it crashes that service, we basically put it in this category, so that you can decide whether to use that exploit or whether not to. It does mean that there's about 30% of our exploits in this category. So if you unselect it, it does mean that you're not trying 30% of our exploits. So I am going to select it. These other two just ask me, do you want to use exploits that take a long time to run? And do you want to stop exploiting once we've already found a weakness in exploit? Okay, I'm going to stick with these defaults. The order of the exploit execution, so which do you want to do first? The newest one, the quickest one, and so forth. It'll ask me about the password cracking. So we've got several services here that we can use, and it also asks me what do you want to look for? Do you want to look for default identities, known and default? Do you want to do a dictionary attack, or do you want to do a custom attack? So basically, use your own dictionary here. Now, these top 4 functions basically have our database, and that database gets updated on a regular basis. Okay. So in this case, I'm going to look for known and default identities. It asks me how deep I want to go, and it also asks me, do you want to set a minimum password length, do you want to set a maximum attempts per account, do you want to set a timeout, and so forth. So you can basically set this to make it more specific, and also to make sure that nothing gets locked out while you're doing your testing. Now, agents, so as soon as we've exploited a machine, we basically deploy an agent. And the agent basically is the exploit. So let's say it's a buffer overflow. What we basically do, the service we target, we use that service, a bit of memory space of that service that we created with the buffer overflow, and deploy a tiny bit of code in there. That bit of code is the exploit, and that bit of code will communicate with Impact to receive commands and to send information. And here it basically asks me, how do you want me to connect back to Impact? Okay, connect to target, connect from target, reuse connection, HTTP channel, and HTTPS channel. Now these can make a difference, obviously, if there's a firewall in between or another detective device, these can make a difference. So it might mean that the first time the attack fails, but then when you use a different connection method, it will succeed. Okay, so but you can use it, look in the log file to see, okay, why did a attack fail, or why did an attack succeed. I'm going to use connect from target because I'm working in the same subnet, and I know there's no firewalls or nothing in between, so I can easily use connect from target. Now, antivirus evasion. Now, when we create our exploits, we already create them to go around virus scanners. Okay, so we test our exploits, we test them to go around the virus scanners, and then we release them. But obviously, virus scanner vendors do not like that, and they will write a signature for it. So therefore, we give some extra control here, so you can try to go around the virus scanner nevertheless. Okay. Obviously, when we find out that for a specific exploit a signature is created, we will re-engineer that to go around the virus scanner again. Okay, because we're trying to be as accurate as an attacker would be, and that's exactly what an attacker would do as well. Now, Metasploit exploits, so Metasploit, the open source version, we can also use that database. So if I install the Windows version of Metasploit on this machine, I can basically use that database in the same pen test, which can save me a lot of time. Because obviously Metasploit is open source and the database will be slightly different than ours, so therefore you can basically have a wider range of exploits by using the Metasploit database as well. Obviously these are not tested and you have to use them at your own risk. Now, automatically run modules, so as soon as we've exploited a machine, we can automatically run modules, and this can be easy, for example, to get the network routes. So we can instantly see, okay, that machine's got 2 network cards, maybe now we can do another port scan on the other network as well. Okay, but I can also do this afterwards, so I'm not going to select it here. So I'm going to finish that basically, and then down here again in the log file, we can exactly see what Core Impact is doing. Now we can see here there's a couple of password cracking modules running. So for example, if I look at the RDP one here, I can select verifier, and here we can see exactly what we're doing, what passwords it's trying. Same for the SMB here. So again, we can see all the passwords that are being tried in on that particular service. Okay, when it's grey, so this is another good one. So we can see here a parent module running. If I click that, I can go to module output, and it will tell me an overview of how far that module is. This summary here only works with parent modules. Okay, so if I go to a child module here, there will not be any information. Only when it's finished. So, for example, this one, it will tell me whether that was successful or whether it wasn't successful. Okay. So here we go. So I'll just let that run for a bit. While that's running, let me quickly tell you about our modules as well. So I've been running the wizards here. But of course, if you do not want to run the wizards and you want to have a bit more control of the modules, all the modules are here as well. So I can just look for CVE number, I can look for module name. So for example, if I want to look for a buffer overflow, that's valid for that Windows machine, I can just type buffer here, and that will list me all the buffer overflows. All the modules with buffer in it. Okay, for example, click this Linux machine here, and I scroll a bit down. We should see some of them are highlighted, and that basically means that those exploits are valid for that machine. Here, for example, so this one is highlighted here, so that means it's valid for that machine. Okay, based on the operating system and based on what port is open, I can then just drag and drop that over there. I can confirm, I can set some parameters here, I can confirm that, and that will then just basically run that particular module. Okay, I can also right click and edit here, and that basically opens a notepad, and this takes me inside that module, inside that exploit. You can change these. These are all open. They are coded in Python, so you can make any changes you want, save it as your own exploit, and then run it again. Okay. Also, we can create a completely new module, a new module here. And that will basically create a module from scratch, and you can just create your own module there. What you're also going to do is macros. So let's say you don't want to run a wizard, but you have got a test you need to do over and over again. You can basically create a macro, and then you can have, for example, let's call it test macro. You can basically to select certain modules that will run in that order. So you could select your own port scanning module, then you can select your own exploit module, and so forth and so forth. And this is this will be the order that it will execute. So you can basically create your own wizards there. Now, while I was talking with C, we can already see there was some successes here. So I can have a look here. This Windows machine here, for example, we've got an agent there. I can click on that agent, and the quick information tells me exactly, okay, this is the exploit that created that agent. And because we've got an agent there, I can right click, and I could, for example, do things like go to the shell. So that will take me into the DOS command shell. I can do, for example, a netstat here. Okay, it will enable me things like get username. So what user am I logged in at? I'm logged in as that agent's got system access here, and I can also do things like Mimikatz here as well. So Mimikatz will basically should basically get me all the users and the passwords. Okay. Also, what's pretty handy if I remove this buffer here and I filter module by targets. I've got the agent selected, so this will now show me what is valid for that agent. So I can say I want to get some extra information here. So anything that's green here, I can just drag and drop. So I could, for example, say give me the usernames and groups. I can just drag and drop that over that agent, and that should get me in a minute the usernames and groups here. Okay, it's finished, so now I can look in the output, what the output is, the usernames and groups here. Okay, also we can see a camera here, so there's a camera here. I can click on that. You can see we cracked that using weak credentials, and because I got an agent on there now, I can, for example, take a video stream, open a camera snapshot, go into the admin interface. So let's take a quick snapshot, and that basically should give me a snapshot of what's on that camera now. Okay, very good to know is you saw that we hacked into was using weak credentials. Now all the identities will be stored here, so I can just go into all, and that basically shows me exactly what identities we've found, and it groups it by source. Okay, so for that particular camera, we can see here that's the camera's IP address, and the username is 7admin, the password was admin, and the protocol was HTTP. Okay. We can see here also that a Linux machine has been compromised, so I can open that again. I can look at the agent, and that will tell me exactly, okay, this was an OpenSSL exploit, and again, I can right click here and go to the shell, for example, and look who I'm logged in. So I've got Apache permissions, whatever permissions Apache's got. Also very good to know about these agents is that they are in memory, so as soon as this machine or the service reboots, the agent will be gone. We can make this persistent, which will basically write a tiny reference on disk, and every time the machine reboots, it will redeploy the agent. Okay. We could also set this agent as source, so now any attack or any port scan will basically come from this machine. This can be handy, so let's say that this machine's got 2 network cards. It's also attached to a, for example, .10 or 10.10 network. We can now do a port scan on that other network, attack that other network, maybe install an agent, make that agent the source, and then do that process again, so you can pivot from one network into another one. Now these other wizards, basically the local information gathering, will get me some more information on the machines on which you've got agents on. So extend network information, email addresses, credentials, and so forth. Privilege escalation will try to get as much privileges as possible. So for example, this machine here will it didn't have root access, so I can just drag and drop that over that agent, and it will now try to get as much privileges as possible by running additional exploits. And then when successful, it will create a different agent, another agent underneath, which will then have the elevated privileges. Then we can clean everything up. So this wizard will basically uninstall all the agents and will not leave any remnants of that agent on disk. If you also want to change or delete the log files, we can go to modules here and basically look for logs. And there's log cleaners here. Log cleaners that we can use to clean out the logs. Now once you've done all your testing, you're happy, we can basically run a report. These reports are crystal based, so you can export them in various formats. We got a raft of reports here, so Delta reports where we can compare two workspaces. Discovered identity reports where we can basically show you what identities we discovered. Very high level executive reports, but also very detailed host-based activity reports, for example. We've got vulnerability validation reports. So this is if you use a scanner, it will basically tell you, okay, this is what the scanner told us that was, but this is what we actually verified. These vulnerabilities were actually exploitable by us. But typically I use the vulnerability report because that will give me exactly what the problem is and how I need to fix it. So I'll show a bit of extra detail there. There we go. So here we go. This is the report. It will show you a quick summary in the beginning of the report. So what's in the report, what do we actually detect. It will show us some graphs of the types of tests we did, of the operating systems that we've exploited. It will show us a top of the most exploited vulnerabilities, and after that it will list all the exploits that we found with a description and how it needs to be resolved. So there we go, exploit name or vulnerability name, the CVE number, the CVSS score, a description here, and then the remediation URL. So in this case it's a Microsoft vulnerability, so it will take you to a Microsoft knowledge article on how to fix that problem. Then we've got some extra links here as well, some extra information on those exploits, and it will do that for all the for all the exploits we found. So exploit CVE number, the name, CVSS score, description, and again the remediation URL. Some extra information down there. Obviously the machine that was affected, the port, exploit name there again, and the host name if the machine's got a host name as well, of course. Now I hope that was a useful video. Thank you for watching, and I'm gonna make some other videos on the other parts of Core Impact as well. So please look out for them. Thank you.